The other thing that you didn't ask about, but that you know I'm going to talk about it because it's in the news again, and that's taxes. So, one of the things that Project 2025 is really pushing and that the Republicans are really pushing is the idea that Social Security and Medicare are in trouble. They need more money going forward, although the recent booming economy has meant that more tax dollars are coming in. So the crisis period for those has been pushed away slightly. Um, but one of the things that I really think it's important to pay attention to when we're talking about making sure we keep Social Security and Medicare, which is something I think we should do, you might disagree, is the Republicans keep talking about where we must make cuts in order to deal with the fact that we're operating at a deficit. Remember, there's the debt, which is the longer term amount the U.S. government owes, and the deficit, which is the difference between how much we spend in a year and how much we take in a year. And the Republicans always talk about cutting stuff so that because we're spending more than we're taking in, so they want more and more and more cuts. But the actual spending on non-defense spending in the United States has not gone up at all, really, since World War II, with the exception of the COVID years, where there was a big spike, which makes sense, right? But so one of the things that's important to remember is that if you remember during the Clinton administration, during the Bill Clinton administration, in part because of something that George H.W. Bush did before Clinton. Both of them were responsible for this. The U.S. government operated in the black. There was no deficit. They actually had a surplus. It's important to remember that happened under Clinton. It hasn't happened under a Republican since Eisenhower, but it happened under Clinton. And one of the things that happened when George W. Bush came into office is he and the people who advised him, people like Grover Norquist, who was a lawyer for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, insisted on getting rid of that surplus because they said that the minute that we had that money, people would spend it, and so they wanted to get rid of it. So even before he gave his first address to Congress, and even before he was sworn in, the George W. Bush administration wanted this massive, massive, massive tax cut, and he ended up getting most of it, not all of it. But with that tax cut, and then with the Trump tax cuts of 2017, that's what threw us into this situation where we've got way more, where we're spending way more than we're bringing in. And so, again, I'm not suggesting how you should think about this. I know how I think about this, but when the Republicans will only talk about cuts, it is worth remembering that it is tax cuts that caused us to get into this problem, not because we're spending huge amounts of non-discretionary, of non-defense spending, of discretionary spending, but also that one of the things that Trump wants to do if he gets reelected is more tax cuts, which will mean that the cuts have to come from somewhere, and that's the fact that one of the things that's happened in the last couple of days is that the Biden people are starting really to come out and say we just have to raise taxes, and their plan is to raise taxes on anybody who has an income, not wealth, but an income of more than $400,000 a year, which is a very, very small number of people in the United States. Because again, remember, since we started the tax cut system under Reagan in 1981, the system that we've had in place has moved about 50 to 53 trillion dollars from the bottom 90% to the top 1%, and it's really only about 1/10 of 1%. So he wants to continue that system, and then the Biden administration wants to do the opposite, say, hey, you guys have walked away with $50 trillion over the last 40 years. Why don't you put a little back in? And I like taxes. I like the study of taxes. And to me, it just absolutely makes sense. That's what the Republicans did when they invented taxes in the 1860s, is to say, we got to all pitch in because we have to be able to pay our bills. And this is a very new thing where the Republican Party is saying, no, we have to slash everything down to nothing because otherwise we're paying too much money in interest. And there is a school of thought that says that deficits don't matter at all, an economic school of thought. That's out there. I don't personally adhere to it. Please don't write to me telling me everything I need to read, because I do read those things. You can adhere to it.